Last episode, I resigned as Borussia Dortmund manager. Today, we're going to see how the next 10 years of football unfolded in my absence. Today, the date is the 1st of August 2028. This was the day that Dortmund started their new era without me. Mats Hummel was manager, media prediction is second. I left them with one final departing gift in Serkan Oza. With all these players that I am asked, would they keep up? Let's find out together. How is it going, folks? Welcome back to Rebuilding Dortmund. Today is technically episode 25, the end of an era. We have gone forward 1 year to see what happened the first year after I was absent. Just a little reminder, if you want to pick up these save games, play through the save game yourself at the point I stopped, or maybe hopping at a sooner point, such as when Dortmund had been relegated. Check out the link down below over on Patreon for Patreon supporters. Those save games are available now. They will be unlocked and available for everyone to pick up in 1 week's time. Also, I want to say thank you to the Patreons. I don't mention my Patreon really at all in videos. I don't tend to ram it down people's throats, but if you are one of the people who supports me over there, thank you. I genuinely do appreciate it. Anyway, here we are, the Dortmund team profile. Mats Hummel's good news, everyone. He's not been sacked yet. 55% win percentage. Key player, Wilfried Gnonto. Gnonto is considered the key player. He has, I've just noticed, got a bid on him. 87 million from Tottenham. In terms of the league season, Dortmund, second place, behind, somewhat predictably, Bayern Munich, who got 89 points. That is an absolutely monstrous total, which I think we maybe achieved once, but even so, yeah, I mean, that's just Bayern being back at their best, isn't it? Interesting to note, top goal scorer for the team was Serkan Oza, the youngster who we snapped up for them in our final transfer window for £120 million. I'm going to be honest, I think he's actually got better since he joined the club. He suddenly now looks like an £120 million player to me. Yeah, 16 goals to his name, not too shabby. Adriano, Scheldrut and Gnonto chipping in with a decent number of goals. Most assists, Florian Wirtz, a player who I didn't really make a mainstay of my first team. In this universe, he's played a lot in the first team. Tactically, they were lining up like this, playing a 4-3-3, which is pretty much the same system I was playing before my departure, although I was imagining they might end up playing a 4-2-3-1. That's not what's happened here. And transfer-wise, upon me leaving the club, they did do some deals. You can see here, Gruder left the building to go to Real Madrid, of course. Elsewhere, Bino Gittins went to Ajax for £30 million. Kostas Leonidopoulos, I've definitely said that incorrectly, he left for £4.6 million. Kind of impressed they got that much money for him. And when it comes to transfers in, they did make a few fairly significant transfers. The first, Kylian Fischer, 29 years old, £28 million for this guy. We'll leave it there. And over in the Champions League, sadly, they could not get beyond the quarter-final. Losing out to Real Madrid 3-2 on aggregate is not that shameful. Did also knock out AC Milan and Marseille. Didn't beat Monaco. Of course, Monaco beat me in the Champions League in my final season, albeit in the league stage, they've beaten Dortmund again. And for those of you wondering about Union Berlin, media prediction is 6th. They finished 14th. That is a really, really disastrous season, especially because they do still have Alex Scott and Wiedreago in their squad. Of course, before we moved to Dortmund in our set playthrough, we managed this team. So I do want to keep an eye on Union Berlin. But based on what's just happened here, one season in, I'm slightly worried for them. I don't feel like there was anything too truly shocking 1 year in. So with that in mind, I think we're going to go 5 years in. We're going to head to the year 2033. Are Dortmund challenging Bayern still? Have they kept together the team that I assembled? Let's go find out together. Okay, 5 years into the future. Interesting to note, first thing that stands out at me, Mats Hummels, still manager of Dortmund. He's been here for the long haul, and Adriano is still at the club and is captain. At 27 years old, he is still a mainstay of the first team. That fills my warm heart with joy. You can see here, 13 goals for the season just gone, so still keeping up his goal-scoring antics he did whilst we were at the club with him. And I have just spotted here, in the DFB Pokal final, they managed to beat Bayern Munich on penalties. Yeah, it took penalties for them to get it done, but they did get it done. And in fact, looking at things here, they have won the DFB Pokal the last 2 years in a row. Of course, we did win it in our final season at Dortmund, so good to see them keeping that winning habit up. Over in the Bundesliga, slightly less good news. They finished third place behind Bayer Leverkusen. I have noticed here, Union Berlin back up in sixth place. Things we love to see. And in fact, if we just have a look at some of the previous seasons for what's been going on in our absence, last year, Dortmund finished third. The year before that, they finished second. The year before that, they finished fourth. That is a really disastrous season. That was only 2 seasons after we'd left the club. And you can see, obviously, that season where they did finish second, the best finish they've had so far. In spite of all of that, though, Mats Hummels has kept his job. And actually, to be honest, he looks like quite a good manager. When they appointed him as manager, given the fact he'd lasted not very long at Eintracht Frankfurt, he'd been sacked after less than a year at the club, I was slightly worried. I'll give it to you, Mats. You're doing all right at the moment. So just looking at Champions League performances over the last few seasons, they lost in the quarter-finals against Arsenal in 2030. The year following that, they lost to Arsenal again. Did they lose to Arsenal 3 years in a row? No, they got a change of pace. They lost in the first knockout round to Liverpool, 3-0 on aggregate. And in the season just gone, they lost to Villarreal. I mean, suddenly my achievement of getting them to the quarter-final, it seems quite impressive, given some of the results they've had here. It's not been great. Now, I'll be honest, what we're about to look at here is the thing that scares me the most. Looking at the transfers in and out in my absence. So 2 years after I left the club, they spent £110 million. They sold £151 million worth of players. Nonto left for the big fee. We already kind of knew that was happening. He left to go to Tottenham, where he still is right now, for £96 million. Arian B also left the building to join Leipzig for £26 million. He is now playing for Gladbach, who snapped him up for a couple million cheaper 2 years later. Elsewhere, Bullet left for £21 million. They were the big sales of note. Bullet, by the way, now playing for Arsenal. This man, he's got around a little bit, hasn't he, in his career so far. A couple of other more minor sales going on there. In terms of big transfers in, £43 million spent to bring in Luca Romero, who is a good player. Is he a £43 million player? I'll let you guys be the judge. And in fact, somewhat amusingly, their next 2 biggest transfers, both signings from Union Berlin. The first is Luca Netz, who is a good wing-back, of course, a player who once upon a time I bought to Union Berlin for £9.5 million. And Luca Killian, who I have no affiliation with whatsoever, but was playing for Union Berlin, didn't last long at Dortmund. He went to Benfica, now he plays for Almeria. In 2030-31, £200 million spent, £40 million made in sales. The sales of note here, Viper to Cologne, Killian Fisher left to go to Al Nassr, and I mean, besides that, no crazy transfers. Kameri going out on loan feels like a weird one. I feel like Kameri was always meant to be a good first-team player. For some reason, well, I say for some reason, he's playing in Saudi Arabia now. I think we all know why he's there. I mean, the thing that jumps out at me here is the transfers in. £199 million spent. The biggest signing was Ninoslav Gajic here, who is a very, very good player, to be fair. Signed for £66 million. £66 million for a centre-back is always pretty steep. I hate to admit it, he's probably worth that. They also picked up Ramon here, who I actually recognise because he was playing for Union Berlin. You can see they signed him for 59 million smackers. He's had a good contribution. Not sure it's £59 million worth of goals and assists there. And the other big transfer of note was Rubino from Bayern Munich. Yeah, they signed him from Bayern Munich for £49 million. He's now on loan at Liverpool for the season just gone. I mean, they have been scammed there, haven't they? Next season, £146 million made in sales. Özil has left the building. £110 million he's left for. Oh, my word. Is he... I'll tell you what. I gave them a great transfer, didn't I, with my last deal. Signed for 120 million, sold for 110. He is genuinely... like, one of the best strikers I've seen in Football Manager this year. I mean, as far as advanced forwards go, I genuinely don't think you could do better. It's mental that they never managed to win a league with him up top for them. Kameri and Becker also left the club. Jovic left the club. That upsets me. I really liked Jovic. Came through the academy, hand-reared by myself. He was like my own child. They let him go for 11 million. On the ins, they did spend a decent sum of money. Paulo Eduardo was the main signing. They signed this guy 2 years ago for £45 million, and this is how good he is now. I mean, no wonder they've not won the league. Mats Hummels has done some shocking dealings. Oregi also joined the club. Is Oregi any good? No. And then Seafal, slightly better. I'll be honest, he's slightly better. He is transfer listed. because he's no longer wanted for 38 million. Just as a reminder, they spent 27 million on him and loaned him to Bayern Munich for half the year. And in the season just gone, more sales, and Killy left to go to Leipzig for 50 million pounds. I mean, considering we signed him for 9 million, the fact they did get, in the end, actually 63 million, not too shabby. Good to see that he was a mainstay of the Dortmund first team for the 4 years after I left the club. Elsewhere, Giovanni Reina finally left the building, aged 31, to go secure the bag in Qatar. Bamidele went to Everton, and in terms of transfers in, I mean, there was one big transfer here. Adam Cockbill, great name, signed from Watford. 59 million they spent on this guy. I mean, he's a good striker. I mean, he's 22 years old and he's English. They'll probably turn a profit on him with English clubs desperately wanting him, but the fact that he's their good transfer. They've not had any fantastic dealings, I feel like. Okay, that is 5 years into the future. I think we'll go 5 more years into the future and round things off with a 10-year in the future. Unlike perhaps Park to Prem, where we've carried a team up loads and loads of divisions, I don't suspect that however far I holiday into the future, Dortmund will get relegated. So with that in mind, I feel like 10 years is a good spot to wrap it off. Lots of the players that we manage will be retiring, and many of them, I imagine, will have moved on to bigger and greater things. Let's see what they're getting up to, and let's see if Dortmund have actually managed to win a Bundesliga. That would be nice. If they haven't, that will be sad. Okay, we're 10 years in the future. Not much has changed, but we live underwater. I mean, I'll tell you what, if we are living underwater in 10 years' time, I mean, I wouldn't. To us, the world's gone to shit quite a few times every year. It could happen. Dortmund, let's focus on the positives. Here they are. I'm looking at the league history graph here. They have not managed to win a Bundesliga since I left, having got the back-to-back titles. This graph is just making me feel sad. In terms of the team, there is a new manager. Ruben Amorim is in. Where is Hummels? The answer is he left his role. Where did he leave to go? That's what I'm now wondering. He left to go to Internacional, and now he's manager of Sevilla after getting sacked. So they've not won a single Bundesliga title since I was gone. Their most recent season, they finished third, and we will all now pretend to be surprised because Bayern Munich have won the league the last 5 years in a row. Yeah, in my absence, they've just gone back to being the best team. Here are the last few seasons where, I mean, looking at the points totals, Bayern Munich have not really been close to being touched. In fact, I think this is the closest anyone's got to them. 7 points difference in the 2033-34 season. Not looking great for Dortmund. And if you're wondering, Jack, how are they going in the Champions League? Not much better. Knocked out by Inter in the first knockout round in 2034. A year later, knocked out by Real Madrid in spite of winning at home 3-1. Year after that, lost to Porto. That's probably the worst result of the bunch. Year after that, lost to Bayern. And most recently, they didn't even make it out the group stage. Yeah, it's not great. I just noticed something. Union Berlin on the Bundesliga table here. Where are Union Berlin? Okay, I'm calm. They've been promoted back to the Bundesliga. They got relegated, though. In fact, they've been relegated twice in the last 5 years. I'm going to blame it on the management. Just to be clear, not my management, just the club's general management. Some good news, though. Dortmund have won 2 DFB Pokals in the last 5 years. Sadly, that is the same amount that Bayern Munich have won. But nevertheless, they are still winning a little bit of silverware. In terms of the squad itself, is there anyone looking through this team that I even recognise this far into the future? The answer is no. Just looking at transfers here, Urata left for £80 million to go to Man City, where he still resides today. 31 years old, 79 caps now for Satoshi. We, of course, signed him for £60 million. He moved on for £80 million after a number of years as a real rock in that defensive midfielder position. What a player he is, by the way. His physicals, his mentals are so good for kind of a ball-winning role. They did also sell a couple of other players here, although 6 years into the future, these names don't really mean anything to me. It's not my squad anymore. The biggest transfer they made was Antonio Rossato, who they signed for £44 million. And he's been extremely average. The year after that, £87 million made in sales. The big one was Oregi, who was that Spanish winger that we noticed they picked up before for £39 million. On the ins, it was a quieter year, but they did pick up David from Valencia for £73 million. Okay, he's very good. I'm not sure he can carry a team on his back single-handedly, but I'll give it to him. He is probably the reason they're still in the Champions League spots in the league. In 2036, an An oddly quiet year by Dortmund standards. They didn't go into the hundreds of millions of pounds of sales on the transfers in or out. That didn't change the next year on the ins, where they spent 75 million. They did sell 211 million pounds worth of players. Adriano finally left the club to go to AC Milan, where he is now declining a little bit. But what a career he had during his time at Borussia Dortmund. And elsewhere, their big sale was to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich just signing the good players. It's annoying to see. This is the guy who I criticised Dortmund for picking up for 47 million. Somehow they managed to get 55 million for him off Bayern. So maybe they knew what they were doing and I'm clueless. And for the season just gone, they spent £231 million. The big signing was Douglas from Bayern Munich. Here is Douglas. I mean, he's just not £64 million good, is he? And on the outs, the big sale was Eric Mollman, who left the club to go for £61 million to Real Madrid. Previously, did come through the Dortmund Academy. They sold him for 12 million, then bought him back for 40 million a year and a half later. That is shocking transfer business, isn't it? And here, interestingly enough, is the overall best 11 for Dortmund. The player with the most appearances in this team, I'm looking through it anxiously, I believe it is Adriano with 412. Elsewhere, Shelderup went on to make 343 appearances for the club. Arata up there as well is cool to see. And Jovic in goal too. I don't know, there's something nice about knowing that some of the players we brought to the club did stick it out long after I left. And I have very conveniently got here a short list of all the players who played for the Dortmund team, as well as Wiedrego and Alex Scott, when I went into the future. So these are all the players that were playing for the first team. So if you're wondering, what happened to Wiedrego? Well, I couldn't sign him, could I? He ended up playing for Newcastle for a number of years, having been signed for £63 million. Uzza, age 29, 10 years into the future, still probably the best striker in the world, still scoring goals for fun for Chelsea. In fact, he's got 20 or more goals for the last 6 seasons in a row, which, if you ignore Erling Haaland and pretend he doesn't exist, that is mental. I don't think any players really scored that consistently in the Premier League. Obviously, the sad thing here is a lot of the players that we'd be looking through are on the verge of retirement. And Killy, still playing for Leipzig at the age of 33. Nonto, about to retire from football. He went on to have a great little career. Played for Tottenham for a load of years, went to Real Madrid, ended up playing for Roma for a while. Shelderup had a crazy career at Dortmund. He is on the verge of retirement, you imagine, as well, ending his days at Napoli. And of course, as is always the case with this kind of thing, it's impossible for me to do the save game justice. I encourage you to download the save game, check up on your favourite players, see how they did in the future. There is a number of the different save files in the pack that I make available for download, so you can have a look through this to your heart's content if you wish. Jovic, by the way, also went and secured the bag with Al Ittihad in Saudi Arabia. He really did follow Kameri's footsteps there, didn't he? And you know what? I think the man it makes most sense to end on is this bloke here, Gruder. Last time I checked up on him, he was playing for Real Madrid. He's now playing for... is it Sochi he's playing for? Yeah, he's playing for Sochi in Russia. He spent 2 years on loan in Russia. He moved to Real Madrid for 48 million, then moved to Everton, then moved to Hertha Berlin, then moved to Wolfsburg. And at the age of 35, I mean, that is not the Polygon that I remember him having. That is quite sobering, really. As is always the case with these kind of in the future videos, you could look through stats and fawn over the nitty-gritty details forever. But when it comes to a video, I want to kind of vacuum pack it in a nice, clean pack that is digestible. And I hope we've managed to do that today. Let me know what you thought of what happened with Dortmund. Any shocks with where players ended up, players' career trajectories, anyone who you maybe thought would be popping up here that I've not covered. Have I forgotten about someone who's really significant? Almost certainly. With this video wrapping up, it does conclude the end of my Let's Play content for FM23, but naturally, FM24 is probably 2 weeks away from being out of a beta. So I'm going to get a week of chilling out a little bit, doing lots of prep work ahead of the new game. We'll be ready and refreshed. There will still be some videos dropping, so check up on the channel midday periodically. Just won't be the normal Let's Play stuff you're expecting, but I have got some plans to fill the downtime. Thank you so much for your support through this save game and through the whole year. I hope you've enjoyed this little look back and look forward to the Dortmund team that was. Until next time, take things easy. It's me, Jack, and I'll see you all again on the next one. I'm out.